So here's the thing. When a person loses blood flow, most of us are aware of the fact that the brain uses the most blood of any other organ in the body relative to its weight. And for you, maybe you have 3% of your body weight is your brain. Me, probably close to 2%. Doesn't speak to the size of our brains, it speaks to the size of our bodies. All right. And the reality is that little bit of 2% of our brain, 3% of our brain takes 20 to 25% of all the blood flow at any moment. And that's because it's such a energy dependent organ. So when a person has a rhythm that such as like ventricular fibrillation, where the ventricles are now just quivering at rates of 400 to 700, usually people will lose consciousness within 3 to 5 seconds. So that tells you how needy that brain is for continuous blood flow. But the brain cells will start to die in as little as 180 seconds, right? 3 minutes. So you start off and you do CPR right away. And that means you have a bit of a buffer, right? So it's like I start blood flow right away, and I'm doing, I started off and do crappy CPR, but at least I'm doing some blood flow. Some is way better than none, right? So I do some blood flow, and I get some blood flow going, and then my colleagues are coming in, and they're helping to, they get up and they bring the bed out and they flatten it out and they start to optimize for flow. But the reality is that I've already started out. So this buffer that they have of 3 minutes before death of cells is extended because I actually start CPR right away. All right, so I'm actually giving flow. Right, as I'm giving flow, I'm actually buying their cells some time. Once we've optimized, because just before I actually started chest compression, I push a button or yelled out. I know a small little center in British Columbia takes a bedpan and throws it out, hopefully empty, all right, into the hall that makes noise, and it's like, that's our bell, all right? It's a really small place. And, so either way, you alert people to come, but I start CPR right away. So I start CPR right away, and then optimize happens, and then the most we're going to get out of chest compressions alone is 25% of normal flow. We might produce bigger pressures than that. It might look like it's close to normal if we really do great work, but it still only maxes out at 25% of normal flow. The good news about 25% of normal flow, it's enough to save brain cells. All right, 25, we overshoot, right? So 25% enough to keep them alive. So now I'm extending this buffer, all right, extending this buffer. The thing is, though, is that let's say the people come in and they treat the problem, they shock that ventricular fibrillation, and the 400 to 700 goes down to like 0, like actually causes a flat line, which is what we're trying to do when we shock, and then their own normal rhythm comes back after. And it might take actually another 2 to 3 minutes before we can actually feel a pulse or there's real signs of life. But all that time, except for just a second or two where we're shocking, we're doing compressions, and we're pulling forward this time before brain cells start to die. So this person wakes up, but actually they don't wake up is more likely. But if it's been going on for any long length of time, 2-3 minutes, it may take some time before they start to wake up. And let's say it takes a day, sometimes 2 days, sometimes 3 days to wake up. But when they go from us and where we started to them, and they look at this and go, it was witnessed. They started CPR right away, all right? They start to see measurements like something called end-tidal CO2 or end-tidal carbon dioxide. Normally, since around 35 to 45. When you're arrested, only 25% of flow, it can go down as low as 10. But they're saying in this whole cardiac arrest, it didn't go lower than 20 because we didn't allow it to. All right, we just kept compressions going right away. Well, in this may be the intensive care unit where they receive the patient, they're looking at this data, and they go, okay, there's all reason to believe that this person's going to turn around. All right, and all the decisions over the next, sometimes hundreds of micro decisions over the next 24 to 72 hours, actually reflect what actually happened at the beginning. Because for us humans, like hope matters, right? And what we expect often determines what we decide.